92.7 WOBM, Shawn Michaels with you, and two of my favorite subjects sort of colliding together, music and photography together. It's a fantastic new book. We are joined by photographer Julian David Stone. It's called No Cameras Allowed, My Career as an Outlaw Rock and Roll Photographer. Hey, Julian, how you doing today?
I'm good. Thanks for having me on.
What got you into, there's all forms of photography. People, all have different, types of photography they love to do. What got you into music, and in particular, live music?
Well, it started first with an obsession of rock and roll as a teenager. I dreamed of being a rock star, and that lasted about 5 seconds after I actually picked up an instrument and had no talent.
Yeah, I'm still trying.
But, yeah. But I loved photography, so I thought, well, let's put the two of them together. And I was a, precocious teenager. The Ramones were coming to town, and I thought, I'll just go down there and photograph them. And I quickly found out it wasn't that simple. A bouncer just laughed at me when I tried to walk in with my camera bag over my shoulder. He pointed up at a sign that said, "No cameras allowed," sent me on my way, and I went back to my car, and I was about to dump my equipment, and I just had this moment of thinking, got to be a way around this, hid the equipment on my body, got into the show, photographed the Ramones, and then after that I was obsessed. I had found the way to put the two things together, and over the next 6 or 7 years, I shot over 10,000 images of all of the biggest acts of the 80s.
So the Ramones were your first, though. The first concert that you remembered taking pictures with that was the Ramones, right?
Correct.
Okay. Now, let me ask you, is there one concert that you thought you were going to get into, or you had the hardest time? Maybe you weren't going to get in trouble, but you were just having trouble getting the shots. Is there one that jumps out at you that was more trouble than any others?
Well, that's an interesting question. I haven't been asked that way before. One of the most difficult ones to photograph of all things was the B-52s.
Really?
Not a band. Yeah, not a band that one usually associates with this. But I was in the pit. I'd gotten my equipment in, and right from the moment they came out, and keep in mind this is the 80s. For some reason, it just turned into a giant slam dancing mosh pit. And that's not what you would think of with the B-52s, but I remember being in there trying to take pictures and just being thrown all over the place. And I saw a lot more bands that were sort of considered harder edge, but for some reason this is the one that always sticks out, that I remember I just couldn't get a moment where the crowd wasn't sort of throwing me all over the place.
When I'm looking at the book, right off the bat, 3 artists that we, play here on our station that just are right there. You've got, U2, you've got Prince, you've got Joan Jett and the Blackhearts. Is there a handful or a couple artists, and I know you love all your photos, I'm not going to say that you don't, but is there a couple that in your book that you say this is, Julian's creme de la creme, if you will?
Absolutely. There's my number one favorite picture is a picture of Prince that I have that's very prominent in the book, where this is Prince at his peak. This is the Purple Rain era. He's got the number one album, the number one movie, everything. It was the closest to sort of Beatlemania that I experienced. I remember I had just started college, and I can remember walking through the dorm and hearing that album coming out of every room. It was just, he was everywhere. And so I have this shot of him in the book where he's in the classic guitar pose, with his hand up ready to make a mighty strum on the guitar. But because it's Prince, part of the action is this big flowing pink boa. And to me, that's the perfect picture. And then I have a great picture of Sting from seeing the Police at Shea Stadium in 1983 again. This is them at their peak, Synchronicity, sold out Shea Stadium. And he's standing there with his shirt off with his bass guitar looking out at the crowd. And he's just, if you want the definition of a rock star, this is it. Just this, god of a man, sweaty, in the New York summer, and just looking out at this sold out crowd. That's another favorite. And then lastly, I have a great picture of Bono of U2 in San Francisco that I shot a couple years after the Sting picture, where he's pointing into the crowd to select a fan that they're going to bring up on stage. Yeah. And it's a great moment because it shows the sort of theatricality that U2 had developed at that point of interacting with its audience.
It's very cool. The book is called No Cameras Allowed, My Career as an Outlaw Rock and Roll Photographer. Now, I asked you, was there a concert that you had a hard time getting the shots? Was there ever a concert where you got in trouble and you weren't sure if you're actually going to get your camera back out of the stadium?
Yeah, there were a few of those. I went to see Duran Duran. Somebody I knew was obsessed with them, and he said, I'll pay for everything if you'll take pictures. So we go down there. It's sold out. We slip some money to an usher at the door, and he lets us into the show. So we don't have seats. So I don't quite have the usual protections that I had, for when I would start taking pictures. So lights go down. The screaming gets louder, if possible, of the audience. And I start to take pictures, and all of a sudden I feel this hand on my back. And I turn around, and there's two huge security guards standing there, and they're looking at me, and they go, Duran Duran Group Security, can you please come with me? And they drag me outside the arena. My friend disappears in a puff of smoke like out of a cartoon. He's gone.
Yeah.
These guys take me outside. They rip my film out of my camera. They take everything from me, and they're gonna dump me outside the arena. Then they decide, well, maybe we'll let you go back in. They go back up to the same door that we had paid the usher to get in, and he won't let me in because he thinks I'm about to rat him out. So long story short, I end up outside the arena, and my friend reappears just as quickly as he had disappeared, afraid that I'm being hauled off to jail. But that wasn't the case. The security guards sort of let us go, and that was the end of the Duran Duran experience.
And there were no rolls of film that you managed to stick away before they took it all?
That one, actually, I did manage to save one or two rolls because I hid them in my shoe. That was something I had started doing by then. I would have all this film on me to sort of divide what I'd shot and not shot. I would stick finished rolls in my shoe. So there are a couple pictures of Duran Duran that made it into the book.
Excellent. So you did manage to get the assignment completed.
Yeah.
It would have been, as we finish up today, it's a much different thing. I mean, everybody's taking pictures at concerts now. I mean, everybody's got their phone and they're taking video and pictures and everything else. It's not the same anymore, is it?
No, it's not. I remember when the smartphones first came out, they were still trying to police it. I remember just sort of watching it and sort of laughing that they were still trying to keep people from doing it, and then they've just given up now. It's just part of the concert experience.
Yeah. I mean, it's not as good a picture as if you had a professional camera, and I guess maybe they still won't let you just bring in a tripod, and your Nikon or your Canon, but it's a different time and place. And with digital, you don't even have to stick the film in your shoe anymore. You can just
No, I mean, and you can shoot a lot more. Back then in the 80s, I would shoot 200-300, pictures, and that was a lot. That was 10, 12 rolls.
Oh, yeah.
You can shoot thousands, and it's nothing. You just unload the card onto your computer and on to the next show.
Julian, where do we find the book?
The book is available at Amazon. You can get it there. It's got tons, 250 never-before-seen pictures, as well as all of my stories of my adventures. Or if you want signed copies, you can go to juliandavidstone.com.
One of my favorites, Cheap Trick in there. You've got Rick Nielsen and Robin Zander in there, so that's pretty cool.
Yeah, that was a great show.
Good job. Julian, we thank you for joining us. This would be a great present, somebody, a coffee table book, perfect for the music and photography lover in your life. Julian David Stone, thanks for taking time with us.
Oh, my pleasure. Thanks for having me on.
Great trip down memory lane. There you go, Julian David Stone. And, check out the book. It's available at Amazon.com. And if you're a music lover or if you're a photography lover or both, check it out with WOBM.